Hi everybody, it's Stephen here for Bland Designs, and today I'm doing a crap video, which I haven't done a crap video in quite a while. And what crap stands for is creative relaxation and play, and it's where I experiment with some techniques or new products and see what happens. Sometimes it turns out awesome, sometimes it turns out to be crap. So I have a class coming up very soon at my local scrapbooking store. I teach once a month an art journaling class. We've taken a little time off over the summer months so people can enjoy the nice weather. And come next month, September, we're starting up again. And I promised them that we would do a Geliplate printing session. And we've done that before, and everybody loves it, and it's very addictive. So I thought we'd bump it up a little bit, and since this is an art journaling class, look at creating background papers but doing a transfer technique that I had seen on the Geli Arts YouTube channel. So I'm going to try this and we'll see if this works or not. Now, on that particular video, they did warn you that this is experimental and that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and there's lots of factors to be taken into consideration. So I am going to do it on my large 8x10 Geliplate, which I've got here all set up and ready to go. And essentially, we're going to take this image that came out of an IKEA catalog and try to transfer it to the Geliplate and then pick it up onto a background page. So the first thing we need to do is create a few just random background pages for this, background colors, that kind of thing. And then we take this, we spread a thin layer of paint, and they suggest it using a dark color and very thin, laying your image face down into this, rub it in well, check to see if it's transferring to the Geliplate. Then when you feel that it has, you peel off the magazine page and then let this dry for a few minutes. How long it's going to dry for, I don't know. We'll be experimenting with that. And then you lay down another thin layer of paint in a lighter color, take one of the sheets you've already pre-printed, lay it on top, and immediately lay it on top, and rub it in well, peel it up, and the theory is this picture will be transferred to your print. Now, it's not going to be a perfect image transfer. It's going to kind of look distressed, and that's okay because you're using it as background. Now, if that works, there are some other backgrounds that I can use, like text, paper, music, sheet music, that kind of thing, and try that. I also want to try this technique on deli paper because deli paper is more transparent when you start to add matte medium to it. So this is all a big experiment. I'm going to get my stuff ready and come back, and away we will go. Okay, so I created off camera a bunch of just random background pages in random colors, just so I have something to work with. And so the next thing I'm going to do is lay down a thin coat of a darker shade of paint onto my Geliplate, and I think I'll use this blue. I don't know if this will be dark enough or not, but I'll just put down some and see what happens. And it says not to spread it too thickly. It should be kind of on the thin side. So I hope that's the right amount. This is one of the factors that you have to experiment with. Okay, now my image. This is my image of these jars from an IKEA catalog, so I'm just going to put that on here, and then it says to rub it in. Now I'm just going to get another piece of scrap cardstock here. Find this keeps my hands clean, and use my brayer. And I think you want to give this a really good smoothing down. Now, the other factor here may be the paper that the image is printed on, whether it's glossy or matte. because I think basically what it's doing is it's dissolving the ink on the magazine page and transferring it to the paint. So just take that off, and let's take a look under here, see if anything's coming off. I don't think so. I don't think I've gotten anything. So one of two factors here, that either this type of page is no good. This was a glossy out of a catalog. You're supposed to let it dry, but I'm just trying to see if it picked up any image at all. They showed image on theirs, and I don't think it did, so I'll just use this scrap piece, lay down, and see what we get. Now you're supposed to let it dry, but I didn't let it dry for this one because I don't think there's any image transferred at all. And I'm pretty much right about that. Okay, we're going to try this again. But I'm going to find a different magazine. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've already put my paint down, and I used the same color as last time. I put it on a little bit thicker, but not much. And I've grabbed from my stash this page that came out of an old art magazine. And let's see what happens here. Now, I don't think it makes any difference whether I use my hands to rub this in or I use my brayer, but I'm going to try my hands this time just to see. And I'm rubbing it in pretty good. So let's see here. I still don't think it's transferring. Maybe it has something to do, maybe the color's not dark enough. I don't know. On their video, you could actually see the image on the Geliplate, and that's not what I'm seeing right now. No, I don't have any image, I don't think, on there. So I'm not going to let that dry. I'm not going to throw these out, by the way. I can do more printing on those later. Just put this down just to clean up the Geliplate. Yeah, I got nothing off that. So I think I need to find images that are printed on a non-glossy or more of a matte finish magazine. So I'm going to have to look for some of those. I'll be right back. This time I laid down a thin coat of black paint, and I have found a matte page. This came out of an art book as well, but this is a matte. It's not a glossy finish. So I'm going to try that and see what happens. And again, I'm just going to take a piece of scrap to keep my hands relatively clean. I'm pressing it in good. Again, I don't know if a brayer makes any difference on this or not. All right. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Something very faintly on there, but not quite right. Okay, am I not putting the paint on thick enough? Maybe that's the problem. They said thin though, so I'll try a little bit thicker. Okay, this is fairly thick. Get another image. Okay, I've got another image. This is the image. Again, maybe images also need to be a little bolder. I might be using something a little too subtle. I don't know. Just cleaning up the excess. I don't know if the heat of your hands has anything to do with it. I don't think it would, but maybe. I'm still not seeing anything. I don't think so. I definitely do not think so. Okay. So, what am I not doing? Let's clean this up a little bit. All right, let's find a different source for images. So I reviewed the Jelly Arts page or YouTube channel about this technique, and to see if I'm doing something wrong, they said to use a dark color to start with, and they said to spread out a thin layer, but they look like they had more on their jelly plate than I had on mine. So we're going to try this again. Theirs was pretty dark. That's pretty thick. Okay. Another page from a book. Just going to clean up the edges here. And they said to rub fairly firmly, so I'm rubbing very firmly. I'm actually doing this more than what they were showing in the video. So then they peeled up parts just to see if anything transferred. Oh, yes, I think this one's going to work. Let's give it a little bit more of a rub. Yes, I do have stuff here. Now I'm a little concerned that there are parts on here that seem to almost look like they beat up, but maybe it's supposed to do that. Okay, now this is supposed to dry. So I'm going to let this dry for about 5 minutes, and then I'll come back with the next step and we'll see what happens. Okay, so this has had 5 minutes to dry, and I just touched it in a few spots to see if anything comes off on my hands, and it doesn't, so it seems to be dry. So then they said to use a lighter color. So for the sake of this, I'm just going to go right to white, and again, just spread a very thin coat of the paint onto this. So you should be able to see this image through the paint a little bit. I may have put too much paint on, not really sure. Just take some of it off. I can sort of see it in these areas. Yeah, there it is. I can see it. So then you're supposed to take a print immediately. I'll use this as the background. And I think it worked. And it did. It worked. Except the wording came out okay, but the pictures are really blotchy, and that may have had to do with the image that I was pulling. So we're going to give this a try again. But this time, I'm going to put a thin layer of black again on here, but I'm going to use, where did I put that image? I had another image here I want to use. And now I can't find it, so I have to go look for it. Okay, I found my image. This is from an old magazine. I think it's a Dutch magazine I picked up somewhere in a secondhand store at one point. So I'm going to use these images, and I've got my black paint on here, so we'll put it down. Let's see if we can lift this image. It said to firmly rub it in, so that's what I'm doing. Let's peel it back a bit and see if we're getting anything. No, I'm not getting anything. So really this is a hit and miss, but I'm wondering if there's something on there that I just can't see. I don't think there is. No, I don't think so. So I had success with one type of paper. So let's just clean this up and figure out what was different with the one I had the success with the ones I didn't have success with. And I'll be back. Okay, we're going to try this again. I took a close look at where I got that other paper, and it didn't seem to be that different from the other stuff that I've used. It was a matte finish. It was an older book it came out of. I'm putting a thicker coat of the black paint on this time. And I've got this out of an old Ripley's Believe It or Not encyclopedia style book. So I'm going to put that on. And see if this makes a difference. I think what makes the difference is also whatever kind of ink they've used. Now, this just set up an idea in my head. Some ink is more prone to dissolving with water. It's not water permanent, in other words. Other inks are more water repellent. So there's no way to tell really what kind of ink is used on these various sources. So that's the hit and miss with all of this. Okay, I've rubbed it good. Let's see. Yes, I do have something. Yeah, I definitely have an image on there. You can see it. So we're going to let this have about 5 minutes to dry as well. Set 5 minutes on my phone, and we'll come back after 5 minutes. Okay, it's been 5 minutes and I've tested it, and it doesn't seem to come off on my hands, though it's hard to tell. My hands are getting kind of mucky here. Use a lighter color. Let's try the pink. Just a thin coat of this. You should be able to see the image through the paint. And I can. Okay, let's use this background and see what we get. Rub it down firmly. Okay. Big reveal. Think it worked. And there we go. That one turned out pretty cool. You're not going to get an exact image, but you're going to get a really artsy looking look, and that's what we're going for here. So this definitely worked. So that was on a sort of a glossy paper that came out of that Ripley's Believe It or Not book. So let's put this over to dry. I'm keeping piles together of backgrounds that really worked. So I'm keeping them all together so that I can duplicate this result. Okay, I have these. These came out of a little book about music or something like this. They are kind of glossy. Now they are black and white. So we'll try that and see how this works. So again, now I've been using black. Let's try a dark color, but let's try a totally different color. Let's go with this dark purple. And I'm putting about 5 dime-sized dots on my Geliplate. So I am putting on a fairly thick coat of this paint. Okay. Because I think if you get it too thin, it doesn't work. All right, let's take our images and put that one there, that one there, blot up the excess. You don't have to blot up the excess, but I'm doing that just to try and keep my hands relatively clean, because I always find with jelly printing you get covered in paint no matter what you do, and also creates neat designs. Okay, rub these down good. I'm hoping that it's not so much the type of paper that the prints are printed on, whether it's glossy, matte, or whatever. I hope it's not so dependent on that. I hope it's more dependent on the amount of paint you put on your Geliplate, because that's easier to work with, because then you can just grab almost any old magazine or book page and get a transfer, maybe. Okay. Anything coming off on here? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I definitely have an image. Oh yes. Yes. So we're going to let this dry as well. Put these off to the side. Now I'm thinking, I let it have about 5 minutes, but I wonder if I put a heat gun to it, what will happen. Now, this is a polymer, so you don't want to, it shouldn't melt. But let's just hit it with the warm air here to see if we can speed up this drying process. Now, I would assume that once I don't see any gloss in this paint, as I use the heat dryer, that would be dry. So what have I been doing this for? 20 seconds right now? So I'm thinking about this in terms of my class. The less time my people have to wait for things to dry, the more fun we can have. So what, that's been about 40 seconds. Give it a good minute, just keep this going over it all. About 50 seconds. It looks like all the shiny areas are gone from the paint. And so that's about 1 minute. Let's turn this off. Let's just test with my finger. If I have a clean finger, seems to be dry. Okay, let's get out a print ready to go. Let's add a different color to this. Now this is a little lighter. Again, you want to be able to see the image come through your paint, so you know that that's really our guide here as to how much paint to put on. So it just needs to be a thin layer at this point in the process, and I can see the image through that. Okay, let's take the print. You got to do this fast, because with paint that thin, it dries very quickly. Let's give it a good rub. Make sure we get all the areas so we get a nice clean pull. Okay. Yes. There we have it. That worked beautifully. Yes, very good. Now that time, what did I do different? I think the trick, my theory right now, is to make sure your first coat of paint is thick. Not so thick that you can carve your initials in it, but thick and dark. Then the image that you're using, I think, will dissolve into it better. And then I took a heat gun this time, kept the warm air flowing, and once I saw that the paint no longer had a glossy sheen to it, it was dry. I did that for approximately 1 minute, as opposed to letting it sit for about 5 minutes to dry. It's just a faster speed. And did my print with a lighter color. Okay, so that worked out well. So what do I want to try next? Let's go back, now that we know about the paint business and that the first layer has to be relatively thick. Let's go back and try one of those pages out of the IKEA catalog that we started with and see if we can get that to transfer. That would prove my theory that it's not so dependent upon the magazine as paper as much as dependent on how thick your paint is for that first layer. Okay, this time I put on a relatively thick coat of red paint, and I've got a page out of the IKEA catalog, and I'm going to do the routine on this. Again, the only reason I'm putting this white sheet of cardstock on top of this is because my picture does not fill the whole Geliplate, and I'm just mopping up the excess paint that's on the edges just to... Oops, there's 2 pages here. Isn't that interesting? Okay. One's enough. Now, you can feel this paper absorbing the paint because it doesn't slide around too much. Make sure I've got all the areas pressed into it. Let's see what we've got. Do I have an image? Yes, I do. Okay. Let's hit it with the heat gun. Just watching my watch to see how much time has gone by. I've been doing this now for 12 seconds. We just keep going until we don't see any gloss, but you want to keep the air moving because this is polymer, so it's a plastic. So heat on a plastic, not a good thing to leave it in one spot for too lengthy of time. Okay, it's pretty much got the gloss off, and it's been on for 35 seconds. Let's test. It seems dry to me, so that was about 35 seconds with the heat gun. Okay, let's add a lighter color. Two dime-sized dollops. And let's see what happens here. Again, we want to be able to see the image sort of appearing through the paint, and I am. Not as well as I saw that last one. It's pretty good. Okay, let's take our background. Rubbing it in good. Sorry if I'm shaking the camera. Okay, let's see what we get. Well, it didn't. Okay. I've got something, but it's not as clear as that last one. So it must have something to do with the source material with it. So that IKEA is not working very well. But I'm not finished yet. I'm going to grab some other stuff to experiment with. This time I'm trying two different colors. I'm using a blue and a black. The blue is a little lighter than the black, but we'll see what kind of effect this might give us. Blue is not spreading very well, but that's okay. Okay. This is a page out of a magazine. It may have been a Cosmopolitan magazine. It's a fashion magazine. It was Flair. It was a Flair magazine, so this is what I'm using. Maybe just use my sprayer here. I tend to prefer to smooth down my pages with a brayer because I think it gets it more even coverage when you do that. But your hands will work just as well, I guess. Okay, see if we get anything here. Yes, we did. Oh, yes, we did. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have any magazines laying around. But this seems to work with magazines, okay. I think the cheaper the magazine, the better. And what I mean by that is because a cheaper magazine probably uses cheaper materials to make them. Paper's not quite as high a quality, and probably the ink is not as high a quality. So my theory is that this works better with cheap source material. Okay, so that's been about 30 seconds now. Give it a little bit more. I think all the gloss has gone away from this. Might be a little tacky up there. Give it just a little bit more. Essentially what you're doing is you're peeling off this layer of paint when you put the other paint on top of it. And the other paint on top of it, which is thin enough, and you're not leaving it on very long, is loosening the paint up, or giving it this layer something to grab onto. Okay, let's try the yellow. So approximately 2 dime size amounts. Approximately. Work fast and try to get your paint in a thin, even layer. Okay, that's not. All right, let's take this one, use this background, and see what we get. Choose our brayer. Now, I usually work with two brayers, one for spraying the paint and the other one as a dry brayer for doing what I'm doing right now, and most of the time I get the two brayers mixed up, so they're both dirty. But it's on the back. It's not going to hurt it. Okay. Wow. Now that one worked really well. So, yeah. So that was from a cheap magazine. So cheap magazines may be the way to go. Now, I am going to try it on a higher gloss paper that's better quality. One more try to see if I can get that to work. Again, working on that theory about the thickness of the paint. This time I'm using a red and a dark purple. I've used 5 dime-sized dollops. I'm just essentially playing with color here. Okay, that's fairly thick. This is a page out of a magazine, a glossier magazine, a more expensive magazine. Start with my hands. Make sure I've got it laid down well. And then we'll take a brayer and smooth that out. And you can see I'm really pressing into this. Oops. Okay. Well, I got something. Yes, there's definitely something there. Okay, let's hit it with the heat gun again. So that's about 30 seconds now. Oops. It looks like it's not glossy anymore. Yep, that seems to be dry. Okay. This time, let's try, oh, I don't know. Let's try this light blue. 2 dime-sized dollops. I'm creating a formula here. Some paint seems to go on a little more smoothly than others. Okay, so see my image through this? What I'm doing off to the side is just got a piece of scrap paper just to lift some of the paint off. I can see the image through it. Take this background, and away we go. This, by the way, is a lot of fun as I do this. It is addictive, but anytime you touch a jelly plate, they are very addictive. Okay. Yes, that worked as well. So that was in a more expensive magazine. So my theory being it's a higher quality of paper, higher quality of ink, but that did work. So my conclusion to this part of this experiment is your first layer of paint should be relatively thick. You can dry your layer 30 seconds to 60 seconds with a heat gun continuously moving the airflow so you don't melt the plastic. A very thin layer, 2 dime-sized dollops of a lighter colored paint. On top of that, immediately put your transfer paper down, rub it in good, either with your hands or a brayer or a combination of both, peel back, you should have an image. Okay, so that's pretty good. But now what I want to do is, because I want to use these in art journal pages as background, I could use some of these, cut them up, whatever, but I'm thinking it might be better on deli paper, because deli paper, when you stick it down with something like matte medium, goes translucent. And I think it might give a more interesting effect. So my next theory is using the same method, but instead of pulling my image with cardstock, pull my image with deli paper. So let me get set up. Okay, I'm using black this time, and I'm using a page out of a book, an art book. So this is a little bit higher quality again, not unlike that food and wine magazine that I used before. So we'll get this on. And I think because this is a thicker paper, you should probably rub it in a little longer than on the lesser quality magazine pages. Let's do a little test here to see if it's coming up anything. Yes, I think I do have something. I do have something. Very good. Let's dry it. I keep looking at my watch just to see what the shortest dry period could be. People get impatient. I understand that. I do too. About 20 seconds now. Okay, it's been about 30 seconds. Looks pretty good. Yep, I'd say that's dry, so it was about 30 seconds. Now, this time I'm going to pull the image onto deli paper. So, I'm going to use a little lighter color. Let's go with a gold. 2 dime-size dollops. Make sure it's thin enough that we can see the image through the color. Okay, deli paper. And with the deli paper, you can instantly see your image coming right up through it because it goes translucent when it hits the paper. Now, for some reason, this does repel the paper a little bit, so you might not get, you get more of a distressed look probably, but that's okay. Or maybe you don't get anything. Nope, didn't get anything. Let's see if we can, okay, we still got this on here. Let's just experiment here for a minute. Put the same piece of deli paper down, just flip it over to the other side. Now there is a shiny side and there's a dull side. Maybe, we'll see, I'll put the dull side down. I don't know if that would make a difference or not. I've printed on deli paper before, no problem. But of course this is a little different technique. I'm rubbing it in good. Okay. Well, I did get something. A little bit more. Alright, could be my color combinations. Didn't really clean up the whole Geliplate all that well, but I did get something. So, having said that, let's see, let's just take a piece of cardstock. See if we can clean any of this up off the jelly plate, because I think I may have to give it a wipe with my baby wipe, because there's too much residue on here right now. Yeah, so I'm going to go off, clean this up, and okay, I cleaned up my jelly plate, and now I've put black and purple 5 dime-sized dollops. And when you're brayering your paint on, don't go back and forth. I was doing that before and I forgot a basic technique. Just go one way and sort of just spread it, not so much to rub it in. So I've got a fairly thick layer here. This is the page I'm using. It was out of the same book, art book, that I used a moment ago. Giving it another chance. Clean up my edges. Get a jelly sheet ready to go. I'm being very thorough. So let's see. There is something, but I'm really not sure if this is a good enough image. We'll see. Now maybe I put paint on too thick this time. There's something here, but I don't think it's going to be really that great, but we'll see. It is taking a little longer to dry, so the paint was definitely a little thicker this time. Just keep the heat moving. I think I've been doing this over a minute now. Still see a couple of look like glossy parts on here, but maybe not. Okay, that's too good. Now you might over dry it too. That could be a problem. I'm going to use a lighter color again. Oops. That may be too much paint. I'm not seeing a lot coming up here. Okay, let's see what we get. We take a piece of deli paper. What side did I put down? I think I put down the shiny side of the deli paper. I'm not sure. I don't know if that really makes a difference. I don't think it does. Now one problem is I get these like air bubbles or something up here too, so I don't know if that's affecting the ability to pull a print. Could. Well, that didn't really work at all. Nice pattern, and those air bubbles did make lines on the deli paper. I got a little bit of the writing, but the image itself, which may have been too complex, wasn't pulling up, or it could be the quality of the paper. Okay, So one more thing I want to try. I want to try a page out of a cheap magazine that we had success with before, maybe out of that food and wine one, because we had success with it, and try that using deli paper and see what happens. Okay, black, $5, page from the wine and food magazine. Down it goes. Got something, but I don't think it's going to be that great. Again, this could be my image that I have picked. It may just be too much, so something that's a little bit more basic is probably better. Still a little tacky. Oops, hit it with 8 down there. Okay. Get out a clean sheet of deli paper. Make sure we put the non-shiny side down this time. And let's hit it with white. Okay, I can see the image, parts of it anyways, through the paint. Deli paper, non-shiny side down. Looks like I'm getting less air bubbles by doing this on the deli paper, so I've got the non-waxed like side down, though I'm still getting some wrinkles in here. I'm just using my hands this time. Okay. See what we get. Well, we got something. It's not as good as some of the other pulls, but I'm wondering if that's the deli paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another page from the art book that I started with, but I'm going to pull it from using cardstock just to see. Purple this time, another page from that art book. It is a colored picture, which I'm now wondering if black and white pictures will work better. Let's see what we get. I've got an image this time. dry. Now I'm wondering too if you can over dry, and I think you can. So try to keep myself to under 1 minute here. And as soon as I see it stop being glossy, being more of a matte finish, I think I'm done. Yep, what'd that take? That took about 20 seconds. I'm not going to use deli paper this time. I'm going to use a piece of cardstock again. And I'm going to try a little pink. This will be colorful. Now I don't have a background on this, but that's okay. Don't always have to have a background. In fact, that'll be interesting to see how it shows up. You may want to be quick with adding that thin layer of paint too, because it does dry very fast. Yep. Not perfect, but that's okay. You're not going to get perfect, but I definitely have an artsy image to this, which is kind of cool. So you could do other things on top of this or whatever with it. So cardstock does seem to work better than deli paper with this technique. Okay, am I done? One more thing. I just want to give the deli paper one more try. So this is my image out of that art book again. Got purple down this time. And I've been using my hand for most of this. I don't think that makes a difference. Hand or brayer. Both, I think, work equally the same. Just want to make sure you cover the entire area with pressure. Okay, I do have an image. Let's dry it. Okay, it's been about 30 seconds. I think it looks pretty dry to me. Yeah, I think so. Let's try white. Might be a little too much there. Do this fairly quickly. Just taking a little excess off my brayer. Okay, get a sheet of deli paper. Let's use the non-glossy side. Yeah, I've got a feeling this deli paper business is just not right. It's just bubbling up. Works okay when you're adding layers of colors onto it. Oh, I just thought of something. Maybe I should have layers of colors on my deli paper first. That would give it a base. That might make a difference. That might be what we'll try next. Well, again, I got something, but you'd never know what it was. Okay, cleanup. Let me create a deli paper with some background on it and do it from there. See if that makes a difference. I've already put my first layer of paint down. I've put my image on top of it, and I've already rubbed it in. This comes from that art book again. And I do have something. It looks more like a negative image, but we'll see what we get. So we're going to dry it again, and then I'll come back, and I'm doing it on a piece of deli paper that I've already made a background on. So my image is dried, and I'm just putting on a thin coat of white this time on top of this. I can see my image coming through the paint. That's what we want to see. Okay, oops. And now this is my deli paper that I've already printed on, just a colored background. And did that make a difference? Not really. There's something there, but it's not much of anything. Let's just take a piece of cardstock. See if we can get any more out of this. This will also help to clean up our Geliplate a little bit. And I couldn't get any more off of it, so no. Okay, so my conclusion. Your first layer of paint needs to be not too thick, but not too thin. My recommendation is a dark color using 5 dollops, dime-sized dollops. Spread it evenly, but keep it relatively thick. Your images. Your source, I think the cheaper the source in terms of its production quality, as in the paper, as in the ink, will give you a better transfer. Also, don't use transfers that have an awful lot of intricate detail, because I think it'll all just blur together. Make sure that you press it well into the first layer of paint, and check by turning up a corner to see if it's transferring or not. Take off the source print, let your plate dry. You can let it air dry for about 5 minutes, or you can use a heat gun on it, but keep the heat moving steadily across it, and only for about 30 seconds or so. Just when you see that the paint has no longer got a glossy sheen to it, and to touch it, your finger comes up dry. Then lay down a very thin layer of a much lighter color of paint than what you used on the first layer. And you should be able to see the image coming up through that layer of paint. That lets you know that you've got the right amount on. Immediately put your cardstock or whatever you're using as a substrate. Don't recommend the deli paper, didn't seem to work very well. Lay it down, rub it in, and rub it in well, and make sure you get all the center sections as well, and pull it up, and you should have an image that you can work with. So this is definitely an experimental method. It is definitely a hit and miss. It depends on several factors. So don't get frustrated. Set aside time where you can pull multiple prints from multiple sources. Keep the ones that you really like. And the other ones you can cut up into little bits for collage material or whatever. So I hope my final conclusion to this is whether it's awesome or crap. Sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes it's crap, as you can see. So I hope you learned something from this video. Do go to the Geli Arts YouTube channel and check out their videos using this method, and let me know if you do something that works every time and it's a great technique. Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.